Hey guys, it's Jennifer. Welcome back. I want to welcome you back. I am so happy to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be talking about burnout. I know it's a buzzword. Have you ever been burned out? I have. I have been burned out for 8 months, the last 8 months. So I'm making this video today so that you can identify what burnout is. I want you to be able to figure out, have you been going through it? Are you on your way there? Are you already in Burnoutville? Because I've been experiencing this for almost a year, and because I have now just in the last month started to really recognize it, take some time to figure out what I need to do to get myself out of this mess. That's why I'm making this video, because it's very important to recognize exactly what it is and how our mind contributes to the state of burnout. For the last 8 months, what started out as a slow burn, something that, I kind of didn't recognize and just kept pushing forward. Now, last month, it started to feel like a red hot poker in my bum, right? So it's like taking this time to breathe, center, refocus, figure out what the heck is going on and how I can get myself out of this burnout. That's why I'm making this video, because I want to be able to help you. It was essential for me to get my heart right, my head right, allow myself to rest and refresh and actually maybe take time away from work and obligations and just have fun. Because if we don't recognize burnout in our life and how it has the capability to really harm everything around us, it's not good. We do not need to fall into this dark hole of burnout. And it seems like as a society, we are. So if you have ever been experiencing burnout, if you think you've been burned out, if you suspect that you're there, we need to have a chat. First, we're going to be talking about what burnout is. What are the symptoms? When is it time to acknowledge that, hey, you've been going like a crazy person. You are burned out or you are burning out. Are you experiencing any of these symptoms we're going to be talking about today? And I'm also going to be giving you the single most important step you can start taking today to lift yourself up out of the dark hole that is burnout. Because I'll tell you something, burnout is a beast and it can find all of us at some point in our lives. But the way out, it's simple. And it is so simple that it escapes most of us. We don't even think about it. But we'll start simply, and let's just start by taking a look at how we think about burnout in the first place. It's what starts it in the first place. And we need to move beyond these beliefs and we need to move beyond these thought patterns so that we are less susceptible to burnout in the future. And I'll be honest with you, how susceptible you are to burnout now and in the future, it's really going to more than likely hinge on the way that you implement this very important solution that I'm going to be talking about here today. Your thoughts about burnout, how you think about burnout, it literally matters way more than the things that you're doing to wipe yourself out to contribute to burnout. I know it sounds wild, but let's get into it. So being the crazy person that I am, I've discovered in my research about burnout that it's an actual clinical diagnosis now because so many people are suffering from it. And whether you work in the home, whether you work outside of the home, whether you have a regular 9 to 5 or a more eclectic schedule, you're running a family or not, whatever you're doing, so many of us are taking on so much and we are running ourselves ragged to the point where we are shutting down. And because it seems that the world outside is so chaotic, we internalize and feel the need to control everything. And we feel that if we don't, that everything will fall apart in our homes and in our lives. But because we have taken on so much, that's usually what ends up happening. And a lot of this is related more to mindset, meaning you can be super busy, but if you have a healthy outlook on what you're doing, you pace yourself, you have a realistic expectation of how much you can take on long term, it actually is more manageable and sustainable than someone who could be as equally busy as that, but who has a super negative mindset regarding burnout. Now, we all need rest and sleep. We know that. We need relaxing, enjoyable hobbies. We need events in our lives that relax us and just fun family time, friend time. And if you have a healthy way of looking at those things and making time for those things, And if you do make the time, you can escape that trap of burnout. But if you have a negative mindset, that is actually what makes you turn more into a control freak. And then you start deprioritizing all those things we talked about, those things that are true and real, that lands you on this roller coaster that tells you that you and you alone have to do everything and that you have the weight of the world on your shoulders and that, you're a failure if you don't do more. So more on that a little bit later. So because of fatigue and stress and this negative mindset, our lives, our schedules, and our productivity, we actually end up less productive and fatigued and drained because we don't have the mental and physical bandwidth to keep up. We don't have the energy to keep up with our lives, our goals, and the dreams for ourselves. And if this all seems like a vicious cycle, well, yeah, it is. So it's important that we stop and we actually identify not only all the things we are doing to burn ourselves out, whether we're taking on too much or even in the way that we're thinking about it, the way that we're talking to ourselves, and who we ultimately forget about in our struggle to overcome burnout. So let's start with what the heck burnout is and why so many of us seem to be going through it. For me, the last 8 months have been a lot. I have literally been going at breakneck speed. It's been very overwhelming. I have a lot going on, okay? I'm a full-time mom. I'm a full-time homeschooling mom. I'm an online business owner. I'm a podcaster. I have a YouTube channel. With everything that I want to do and everything that I want to accomplish, I'm always busy. I found that I could not decompress and I definitely hit a wall. I hope that in sharing what has happened to me, I can help you to identify any of these things that may be going on for you in your own life. I'm going to offer up the warning signs and practical along with spiritual action that you can take right now as a woman of faith to stop this burnout cycle. Burnout definitely has symptoms and all of the mental health studies talk about those same symptoms over and over, and I was experiencing a lot of them. You might be too. But the good news is that I got burnt out precisely because time and time again, I kept forgetting about what should have been the most important thing in my life. So by stopping and course correcting and by focusing on that one most important thing, I got out of it. So that's the good news. So we're going to be accepting some hard truths and we're going to get going to molding our hearts and our minds correctly when it comes to burnout. And finally, getting out of it by focusing on that single most important thing. Because when you do that, any other steps you take to overcome burnout will be easier to tackle. We're going to talk about those other steps in an upcoming video. Stuff like actual day-to-day things that when you practice them and you build them out over time, they become habits. Some of them you more than likely have heard of already, and others you may not have even thought about, but they were. Okay, so let's acknowledge those burnout symptoms. And as I'm going along, I want you to see if you can relate or identify to any of these things that I'm talking about here. For women, a lot of these symptoms I'm describing can also be hormonal, whether you are pre, post, or in full-blown menopause. That can totally be the case. And if you suspect it is, then I want you to talk to your doctor and have your hormone levels checked, especially if you've been suffering for a while. That would definitely be a wise thing to do. But what I'm talking about here is something beyond that, something that can actually make any hormonal symptoms that you may be experiencing even worse. And that's not fun. So when you're overworking yourself and you keep going and going to the point of mental and physical exhaustion, and you have hormone stuff going on, it's crazy. And that's precisely what I had been for the last 8 months. And I was literally pushing myself to the limit, especially fatigue during the late afternoon, usually after like 2 or 3 or so. Even if I was getting pretty good rest at night, I was just super tired all the time, tired as if I didn't get any rest the night before. And this was in spite of whether or not, I had been sleeping great. It was crazy. Anxiousness, a total preoccupation with what seemed like a never-ending to-do list in my mind. Another one was disinterest. Suddenly, stuff that I really, really loved doing either seemed like it was too hard to do. It was too hard to slow down, to read the Bible, to record a show for you guys, to grade homeschool papers. It all just seemed like this huge mountain that I had to climb. And it seemed like I was so tired and I just had this physical and mental inability to concentrate and do anything. Another big one for me was irritability. This is a really big one for me. I don't know if you've experienced this. You probably have, especially if you're a mom. For me, when my homeschooling day was over and I was in the office trying to work with the kids, when they were interrupting me or making a lot of noise when I was trying to write or record or edit, I would just be yelling. I would be snapping at them, leave me alone so I can get work done. All that stuff that I know isn't good to do, but, I was just so stressed and distracted. It was like I was compelled to get irritated, and it was a reaction that I just couldn't fight. So that was one of the big ones for me. Not being able to be in control of my emotions, this irritability when stressed, feeling triggered at things that should be minor annoyances, stuff that I probably could easily better shrug off if I was in a better mood or a better frame of mind. But when you're super tired and burned out, you can't control it. So when we're constantly going and going and going, and we're not taking time to rest and we're not taking time to recharge, and we're not engaging in activities and things that allow our minds and bodies time to rest and just to feel relaxed and great and not worry. And, no, I'm not talking about sleeping, because sleeping is for sleeping, but if you just seek rest and relaxation only through sleep, it's going to be a recipe for disaster for you. I found that out the hard way. If the only time you get to rest and relax is when you're sleeping, like I said, it's going to be a pretty sad existence. It's like trying to run a car with no gas. Pretty soon you're running on fumes, and pretty soon after that, you're going to be running into a ditch on the side of the road, and you're going to have to call AAA to get you the heck out of there. So have you been experiencing any of these symptoms I'm talking about? Fatigue. You're super tired. You can't sleep. You're sleeping too much. You feel tired no matter how much rest you get. That's a biggie. And it's the one that people usually associate with burnout. They picture someone who just can't get out of bed, or they just can't get off of the couch. Someone that's seen as like a lifeless shell of a person. But guess what? Burnout is really insidious, and it's sneaky, and it manifests itself in a lot of ways. It's really clever. Here are some more symptoms that I didn't mention before. How about if you love to exercise, your lack of energy to exercise? And, if you are that type of person that really loves to exercise, it's been a part of your routine in your life for years, and you're usually super good about, keeping to a schedule, and you love it. And God love you. I wish I was that person. I have been slowly trying to incorporate exercise back into my life over the last few years, and especially over the last month. But so God love you. But if you were that exercise person and you usually love it and you can really get going and do it, but you're finding that your mind and your body just can't get you there, that's another major sign of burnout. So we've talked about how burnout can affect you physically, but how about how it can affect your mind and your emotions, right? We talked a little bit about how I've been like just a negative Nancy and kind of irritable a lot. And your brain and your thoughts can also tend to be unfocused a lot when you have been experiencing burnout. So if you feel scatterbrained, you forget a lot of things. And if this sounds like you, like for me, like on a daily basis, I would be walking around the house looking for my phone that was in my pocket, or I would be looking for glasses that were balanced on my head, right? Or I would walk into a room and forget why the heck I was walking in there in the first place. Stuff like that. So if this sounds familiar, and if you're having trouble recalling things that happened just a few hours ago or a few days ago, if you're getting pessimistic, irritable, angry a lot, and how about pessimistic in the sense that you're really feeling down, like the world is dragging you down, life in general, and you don't see things improving, Or maybe you're noticing that not only are you experiencing these things and you're irritable, you're getting short-tempered and just upset a lot with the people in your life, your husband, your kids, your friends even. Getting short-tempered and short with yourself. And this usually manifests itself in the way that when we make mistakes, even little mistakes, and we're beating ourselves up in a way that we would never do to another person. We are so hard on ourselves. It is absolutely crazy. And that one is good to acknowledge because that burned out wife or mama is not you, okay? It is the burnout monster that has taken over you. And we're not at our best for sure when we're experiencing this. So it's pretty safe to say that for me, going, it just caused my body and mind to react. And I know that this can be a real drag talking about this stuff, but sometimes we really have to. We have to just get honest with ourselves and acknowledge what is going on. Is this the state that we want to continue in? Because this isn't what life is supposed to be. I know that sometimes it feels like a dark hole that you can't crawl out of, but it is not the way that we are supposed to live. So if you are relating to any of this, I want you to know that you're not alone. And I want you to know that what you have been going through and what you have been experiencing in your life can stop. First thing I want you to do, close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to take a breath. If you're driving, obviously don't close your eyes. But if you can right now, seriously, I want you to close your eyes. Now, I learned this from my business coach who told me that when we are in fight or flight mode, when all of our body systems are firing, when we are feeling maxed out, when you do the simple action of just taking a few minutes to center your breathing and take slow and measured breaths in an effort to relax, and yes, it can feel dumb and silly and forced, but it can really work to calm both your mind and your body. And the reason is because when we're stressed, when we do take the time, a few seconds, a few minutes to slow down our breathing, a really cool thing happens. The rest of our body and our mind begins to slow down too. Because at the start, yes, your mind's racing and your muscles are tense and your brain is getting all of these signals from your body that you should be going nuts. But when you take the time to really slow down and center your breathing, even if everything else is tense, but then your brain realizes, wait a minute, the breathing isn't matching all these other crazy signals that I'm getting. So the body actually does begin to start the process of calming down. Because if we really were in danger, we would be breathing really heavily, right? So if our breathing is calm and slowing down, everything else sets the stage to start calming down as well. And that was a really cool thing for me to learn because I was literally that person that was like, do not tell me to calm down. Don't tell me to breathe and calm down. That never works. But when you start reframing it in your mind that way, guess what? It does work. So I know it sounds corny, but it works. So after you take a few minutes and take some deep breaths, I'm going to share with you some real God honest truths. And I want you to listen to me when I tell you, first and foremost, you're not alone. These are very, very common symptoms that we as human beings experience. This is part of the human existence. And these symptoms of burnout, they're not fun, but we experience them because our body and our minds are very intuitive and they're smart and they have a way of telling us, stop, okay? You are in danger. The way that you have been, okay, this is your body talking to you, right? The way that you have been operating and managing yourself, it's dangerous to you, your physical health, your mental well-being. Something bad is going to happen if you continue to go down this path. It's your body's way. Your body warns you. Your body's smart. It wants to protect you. It wants to protect us because it knows that burnout is not sustainable. So after you're breathing, after you're recognizing symptoms, you're kind of like, okay, Jennifer, what's next? You've been talking about this. I get it. I'm in burnout too. How do I get out of this? You already know. Intuitively, you know how to get out of burnout, but you forget about it all the time. The simple solution to get ourselves out of this mess, it's simple. It's powerful. I'm probably going to annoy you a little bit right now in telling you that you intuitively know how to get out of this burnout cycle. You know how to do it, but we all forget. I forgot. It's so simple. It's so powerful, but we forget. And you probably already guessed where I'm going with this because I know my people and I know you're super smart. So here it is. It's not just our mind and it's not just our body that's screaming to us to calm down and slow down. I truly believe that it's God's voice, and He is the key to eliminating burnout in our lives forever. He did not make us to suffer like this. He does not want us to suffer like this. We do. We do because we're human and we have sufferings in this human condition, and it's the human inclination to sin, and the world is broken and not perfect. And we do fall into this burnout trap over and over and over. I know that, but He is a good God. He is a loving God, and He wants more for us than this. He doesn't want us trapped in our minds and in these endless loops, strife and pain and constant stress. That is truly not the way that God, our Father, wants us to live. Our lives are short, and in the grand scheme of things, we are literally here today and gone tomorrow. So we have to ask, why are we doing this to ourselves? And in the book of James, chapter 4, it reminds us, quote, "You have no idea what your life will be like tomorrow. You are a puff of smoke that appears briefly and then disappears. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills it, we shall live to do this or that, and only if He wills it. Because the Lord came to save us so that we can have a chance beyond something or beyond this sinful and transient life, right? We are, like the song says, dust in the wind. What does the priest say to us on Ash Wednesday when he's smudging the ashes on our foreheads? You came from dust, and to dust you shall return. Now, we all know that, but that's what the Lord is constantly trying to remind us, that that's the reality, yes, but there is more to the story. We just have to slow down long enough to trust Him and not give in to this enemy taskmaster in our lives that wants us running around like a hamster on a wheel, thinking that we have to do everything and control everything. We forget that we have to ask God to take over the reins in our life, and we have to ask Him to help us to slow down long enough to focus on Him. We need to slow down to gain wisdom and grace that only comes through slowing down and talking and praying and trying to listen to Him. And we forget that we even have to acknowledge Him in the first place. We need to talk to Him on a daily basis. It's not just once a week church or once a week mass. It shouldn't be just a few couple prayers a day. When we think about it, that's actually pretty shallow. And, we're all guilty of that in one way or another. We regulate God to these certain pockets of our day, and we compartmentalize Him. And that's what really hurts Him, because He wants to know us on a deeper level. And we deny Him that. We just, for stupid reasons sometimes, we would feel weird talking to Him at random times throughout the day, right? When in all actuality, He wants us to let Him in all day, every day. We just need to start by talking to Him. And if we don't know what to say, we just need to sit in silence and tell Him, we're burned out. We are tired. What do we do? What can we do? Help us. And the most important thing is, when you just sit with Him and talk to Him like that and give up that control, He's going to manifest in your life in ways that you cannot even imagine. It's an amazing thing to just get quiet, give up the control, sit with your Heavenly Father and just talk to Him. And imagine if you did that on a regular basis at random times throughout the day, what that would do to your mindset, to stop, get quiet, and just talk to Him. It's pretty freeing. Imagine, making time, sitting there in silence, talking to Him. Just tell Him you're tired, tell Him you're irritated, tell Him your problems, your pains. Just give it all to Him. What does St. Paul tell us in Philippians chapter 4? Have no anxiety at all, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. Then the peace of the Lord that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And as Catholics and as Christians, we cannot just regulate the Lord to Mass on Sunday or a church service on Sunday and a short prayer in the morning and the evening, because, we look at Him as someone we go to only when something really bad happens, but someone that we're not in a relationship with. But He's a good God. Like Father Mike Schmitz would say, He's a good dad, and He's a dad of promise and of hope, and He loves us. He really does love us, and He wants us in relationship with Him. He wants us to love ourselves in healthy, respectful ways and to love each other. And we can't do that when we're burnt out messes, when we're tired and we're pissy and burnt out all the time and we're running ourselves ragged and we're forgetting about him. That's what's getting us into that cycle. And when we're feeling like this, when we're feeling burnt out and we're not in a relationship with him, or we're not honoring the relationship that we said we wanted with him, when we're not taking him along our daily lives, our journeys, when we leave him out of our daily life, everything just has a way of falling apart. And that's how burnout manifests and starts and ruins lives. And that's why I'm making this video. I have been completely guilty of this. I had a daily 20-minute commitment to prayer, and I was just getting more and more and more busy. I was regulating God to just mass on Sunday. I was letting all the stresses of my everyday life dominate all of my thoughts and just distract me from him. And I know that so many women do this. Do you do this too? And I find that often if we don't go to him with everything that we are fretting about and worrying about, oftentimes we think that he doesn't want to hear that from us. That's a lie, because he wants all of us. He wants us to share it all with him. And when we do, our burdens become lighter in a transformative way. When we show up for him, he shows up for us in big, big ways. And our relationship with him just deepens and everything gets better. So I don't want you to believe that burnout is just the way that it is and this is just what your life is about, because that is not what it's about and that's not what it's supposed to be about. Far too often we're running ourselves down to the ground, and guess who's that, or who that is work of? It's the devil. It's a sneaky tactic of the devil. Whenever we have tendencies to be too consumed and burned out and we're not focused on God, we're not consulting him on a regular daily basis, when we leave him out of the equation, then that's when all of these symptoms and all of these things that we've been talking about show up. And they show up sometimes when you least expect it. You can hit a wall and before you know it, you're exhausted and you're overwhelmed and it is not good. I care about you guys and I don't want you to become slaves to burnout like how I've been for the last 8 months. I don't want this happening over and over and over again in our lives, because we have to give God a chance. We have to rest in him. There are some things that will never be finished, never be resolved, and that is okay. And it's that gentle acceptance of that that will prevent us from burning out. Because if we don't accept that we can't do it all and that we don't have all the answers, we will continue to eventually hit that same burnout wall over and over and over. And we're going to continue to drown in our worries and our stresses and our responsibilities. And that is what I do not want for you. I don't want that for myself. Now, I cannot guarantee that I will never burn out again, even though I know all these things now. I can't guarantee that you won't ever burn out again now that you know these things. Yes, life and stress is always going to happen, but if we remain firm and resolute as someone who is determined to rest into the Lord and know that we don't have to go at it alone, and life and stress will always happen, but as someone who knows that they need to give up control, I'm going to be more protected than someone who thinks mistakenly that they have to go at it alone. We were not created to go at it alone. We need to remember God and his promises in our life and remember that he wants all of us. And the things that lead us to get burned out in the first place, I 100% guarantee that they're going to creep back up and try to get a foothold in our lives. But we just need to hold tight to him and remember that we are not in control. He is in control. We have to give it all up and give it to him. We have to take this mindset and just throw it in the garbage that we have to have such a tight grip and control over everything. We can prioritize, we can approach things in a calm, centered manner and ask for his help. We will literally have to remind ourselves. And when we do that, it's so hard. But when you do it, massive shifts happen, good shifts. You slow down, you calm down, we get kinder, we start prioritizing, we treat ourselves better, we treat others better, we pace ourselves, we get done what needs to get done, but without the constant stress, the constant beating ourselves up, because we realize that nothing's perfect and it's never going to be. Because last time I checked, we're not perfect. God's okay with that. We just have to keep coming back to him. He loves us. That's his job. That is literally his job, to hold our hand and do all the heavy lifting in our lives. All he asks from us is love and obedience and just the giving up of that control. So I hope I've reminded you today about instinctively what I know you probably already know in your heart. I hope I've helped you to realize what burnout is, what the symptoms are, reminding you that God is in control. It's just our attempts to do everything and try to be like a mini God in our lives. That's what leads to this burnout. And we just need to get off the crazy train, and we just need to get back into a daily relationship with God. But let's start talking about what can we do. We know we need to get into a relationship with Him. What does that mean? That means I want you to really try to make a commitment to not just regulating God to Mass on Sundays, church on Sundays, or a morning and evening prayer. So what will you do? Starting today, I want you to commit to sitting with God 10 minutes a day, especially if you aren't already doing that. And again, not just a morning prayer, not just the evening prayer that you may already be saying. I mean, I want you to think of it like a coffee date. Like you are going to meet your heavenly dad, and you can either sit or relax with him, or you can talk his ear off for 10 minutes while he listens. Talk to him. Talk to him like he's your best friend, because let's get this straight right now. I want you to listen up. That's exactly who he is. He is your best friend. He is your dad. He is your everything. If you're Catholic, you can say a rosary with him. You can contemplate the decades. You can say one of our wonderful, rich treasury of prayers we have. When you are reciting the decades in the rosary, remind yourself of how much he loves you and what he went through for you. You can just sit in silence. A lot of us don't know how to sit in silence. A lot of us think that we always have to say a memorized prayer, or we have to have a formal way that we sit and get quiet with him. But maybe if we think about it, like we're sitting in silence with a friend, or just opening up and talking to a friend, it gets easier, and it could uplift your life in ways that I can't even tell you. Anything you can do to get closer and feel connected with him, that's what you're going for. You want to flex that muscle. You want to build that habit. Build that habit and commit. You wouldn't bail on a friend when you told them that you would go and meet them for coffee. So think of your date with God as the same way. Show up for him, because he's waiting for you, and he's not even going to be mad if you're late. If you're Catholic, I would definitely encourage you to go to adoration. Go online or check your parish's bulletin. Look to see the times that they offer adoration and go. Every parish usually has certain days and times out of the week where adoration is offered. And even if you just went and sat with him in silence for an hour, I am telling you, as a Catholic, we have such invaluable resources in our church, and that is one of them. The Mass, the sacraments, the Eucharist, adoration. These things are real food, the new manna, if you will, for the journey that we call life. He is in the tabernacle in every Catholic church around the world right now, at this very moment, waiting for you to come sit with him. It is such a gift. It is such a gift to just sit in silence or pray in front of the Eucharist, in front of Christ. So the whole point of this, whether you're Catholic or not, I just want you to take some action today and start penciling time with God into your daily schedule every single day. Something that's beyond your typical morning and evening prayer. You want to loosen that chokehold that burnout has in your life, do you not? And I'm telling you that this is the way to do it, when we religiously take steps every single day to make him a part of our day-to-day existence. If we do that, it's going to loosen this chokehold that burnout has on our life. And yes, it can be hard, and we get busy, and we'll forget, and we'll mess up, but that's okay, because we can't go at it alone, right? We already know that. We have to continuously ask for his grace and for his love along this journey. We need his help to manage all of this chaos. And we need to remember that we need to ultimately recognize what is more important. There's nothing more important than a relationship with him. Nothing else is as important as this. And that, my friend, is the key to beating burnout. Because remember the truth. And the truth is that God is in control. He is ultimately in control. From the foundations of the world, he has already written the book. This book of our lives has already been written. He's written the last lines of what is going to happen until the world ends and he comes again. So when we try to control everything and everyone, we're just going to burn ourselves out. The only thing we can control is our ability to slow down and ask for his help in our daily lives. We need to be going about our daily lives and taking care of our responsibilities, yes, but not from a place of haste or burnout or stress, but from a place of gratitude, in that we know that He is holding us in the palm of our hand, and our job is to trust Him. And we're going to mess up, and we're going to ask Him to build us and rebuild us back up again, because we're going to have to. We constantly have to rebuild this heart of faith inside of us. We just have to go about our days in faith and hope and long for our future with Him in heaven. And in the meantime, just try to take care of ourselves and others the best we can here on earth. And that's what's honoring Him the most, right? What were the two most important commandments that Jesus gave us? Love Him with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. I hope that if you have been feeling down or burned out, just like how I had been feeling, that this gave you hope, that this gave you permission to slow down, to relax, to stop for a minute, to just remind yourself, hey, I am not alone. I want you just to go and just talk to our Heavenly Dad. Just sit with Him and remember, not everyone realizes this secret to getting out of this negative cycle of burnout, because they don't have a relationship with God and they don't realize that He is in control. They're not. God is in control. And when we are in relationship with Him, we can be calmer, we're more centered, we're less frazzled, we have a better, more meaningful life. I want you to remember that He is with us always. And if you forget, I just want to leave you with one of my favorite prayers from a truly great saint, Saint Patrick, okay? And no, he's not just all about, shamrocks and wearing green. He says, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. I hope you have a wonderful week. Next time, I'll be sharing more earthly things, I guess, that we can do to prevent and combat burnout in our lives. And until then, I can't wait to see you. God bless.